Good afternoon and welcome to the Canyon Historic Preservation Commission meeting. We will start today's meeting with roll call. Lisa, if you'll.
Chris Jenkins.
Present.
Lester Lamont. Absent. Mike Madone.
I'm here.
Rich Millard.
Present.
Jim Nelson. Present. And Millie Wins.
Okay, we have a slight amendment or an amendment to the agenda today. Mildred Wentz was appointed as our secretary at the last meeting, but she did not realize what that entailed. So she asked if she could step back, and we are going to take nominations now for a new secretary. Any motions? I move to appoint Jim Nelson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call, Lisa.
Chris Jenkins.
Yes.
Lester Lamont. Mike Madone.
Yes.
Richard Millard.
Yes.
Jim Nelson. Abstain.
I'll abstain.
All right, Jim, thanks for stepping into that role, and we'll let you do roll call from now on. We have a tight timeline today, so we're going to try and move along at a fairly good pace. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting? And if we have, do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Go ahead with roll call, Jim.
Chris Jenkins,
Yes.
Lester Lamont, Mike Madone,
I'll abstain. I wasn't at the meeting.
Rich Millard,
Yes.
Jim, yes. Mildred,
Motion carries. Today, we are really fortunate to have three very qualified and potential candidates to fill a vacancy as an alternate on our commission. I'd like to welcome, I take it all three candidates are here today. I appreciate your interest in serving on this commission. Sometimes it's drudgery and other times it's fascinating. So I think we all enjoy what we do here, and we will be happy to welcome a new commission member, but also wanted to mention to the other two gentlemen that we have a couple of committees that are really vital to our role here. There's an historic context committee and an outreach committee that, if you are interested, we would certainly welcome if you would serve on one or both of those committees and help us out a little bit in the future should you decide that that's something you would like to do. We'd like to keep our commission members on as long as we can, but that doesn't always happen. We've got a vacancy that comes up usually at least a year, once a year, maybe more, and so generally people who serve on those committees will step into one of those roles if they are interested. So with that being said, once again, thanks to all three of you for your interest in serving on the commission, and I will entertain a motion for a vacancy to be filled as an alternate on the Historic Preservation Commission. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
A motion, are you nominating someone? Sorry. We're going to have to
No.
nominate one individual.
in terms of discussion, I'd like to amplify just a little bit on the importance of the two committees. The Historic Context Committee is actively looking at historic dwellings and the buildings in the community. and is playing an important role in helping us move forward with developing the Historic Preservation Plan. As a new CLG, we haven't had the opportunity to finish our Historic Preservation Plan, so that's an important task before us. And the Historic Context Committee is, again, looking at the buildings in the community and the development of the community. It is playing a very important role in moving forward with this. The Outreach Committee has a similar role to engage the public in participating in the development of the Historic Preservation Plan and being able to then support the plan as we move forward. We feel that it's really important to have broad engagement in development of the plan and active support in implementing it. There'll be decisions that we make from time to time that will need to have the understanding and support of community members. So the Outreach Committee is playing a very important role. And oftentimes we find, and Rich mentioned this earlier, that from a Chamber of Commerce standpoint, the importance of having active committees and members of committees is critical to the organization moving forward and moving people onto the board and in other positions. So again, I'll echo Chairman Jenkins' comment about our interest in engaging people in the committees and playing an active role in doing that. As we have such well-qualified applicants, but one position to fill, that makes it a tough call. And we certainly hope that whoever isn't nominated will actively participate in the committees and help us move forward.
And I will state on top of that, Tim, would you like to say something to the board? Yes, you may, please.
Mic is on? Okay. I put in for this before the Water Committee was going to be formed, and I'm actually going to put in for the Water Committee. And I see we have good qualified applicants for this, so I'm going to withdraw my name, make your job a little easier. And so I will withdraw my name from this committee. Okay?
Tim, we appreciate you letting us know that, but to reflect on what Jim just said, that if you would like to participate somewhat in some of those committees, it's a big help, and you have a long reach in the community, so we do appreciate you putting in an application, and
You bet. Okay.
thanks.
Good luck, guys. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. So do we, with that being said, would either of you would like to make a statement or have anything to say to the commission before you make a decision?
My name is Aaron Maleko. I live at 310 Macon Avenue, just a couple blocks from here. On a better day, I would have walked. My wife and I do own a couple old buildings, and like I said in my introduction letter, they're not necessarily on a register, but we do own a couple buildings from the 1880s here in Canyon City. I have a passion for old buildings and looking up the history of the buildings. We also own 301 Main Street, used to be the Speedway gas station. We did significant renovations to the inside of that because it was pretty much a gutted shell. And interestingly enough, out of the buildings that we own, at least two of them at one time or another were discussed in City Council for the wrecking ball. Both 301 Main Street and 310 Macon were discussed as something that should be taken down, and that would have, broken my heart because they're beautiful to have and beautiful to own. So I am interested in serving for the city in some kind of way other than just being a citizen, and I just thought that this committee would be a good place to get my feet wet. And
Thank you.
if not chosen, I would be very interested in those other committees.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you. Any questions before
I don't think so. Lauren, would you like to say something?
I'm Lauren Flick, and thank you for having me here today and taking the time for this. I sent a letter and a resume in with my application. I assume that you have that. So I'm new to town. We've been here about 2 years. I'm a retired engineer with some experience looking at old buildings around the country, and have no idea if that would be the expertise that the commission's looking for, but would love to serve on something in the city and get to know people. So I'm here today to help in whatever way I can. And again, if I'm not selected for this commission, I'd be happy to look at other options you've just talked about. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Lauren. So now I'd like to entertain a motion to fill that vacancy, and at the same time, if possible, I would like to make a recommendation to the city council to recommend the other individual to serve on one of our committees. Do we need to go through the city council to do that, Lisa? Is that correct?
You can include it as part of the motion that you make for filling the vacancy to add the other two as serving on the committee.
Okay.
So we can just add it to the same motion.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll nominate Lauren to serve on the Historic Preservation Commission and request Aaron to play an active role in the Historic Context Committee because of his experience in property ownership and working on older homes or older buildings.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that, and I would just like to commend both of the resumes. I think they're outstanding, and both of you are obviously well qualified to fill this vacancy, and I hope that, and I'm sure regardless of the outcome, that we'll be able to use both of your skills very, very well. So I'll second that motion with that being said.
Roll call. Do I need to repeat the motion, Lisa, or are we fine? Okay, go ahead.
Roll call, Chris,
Yes.
Lester, Mike,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Jim? Yes. Millie?
Motion carries, and congratulations, Lauren, and I want to let you know, Aaron, that we wanted to add an additional position so we could put both you guys on, but they wouldn't allow us to. So we do hope you stick around, and because the committees also play a vital role in what we do, and obviously they do all the footwork, and we just kind of take their recommendations. So that's meat and potatoes of the whole job here. So thank you both, and congratulations, Lauren.
And as someone who lives in an older home built in 1907 on Macon, I've had the joy of doing some restoration and currently have a project on working on the old windows. So we really, on the Historic Context Committee and in other activities, we're talking about the possibility of some workshops on techniques of restoring older homes. And, you know, looking at windows especially because so many of them just get yanked out and taken to the dump. And that's such a tragedy. The light you get reflected on the walls and stuff from the imperfect glass and all of the benefits of double hung windows are just incredible. So we're actively looking at hosting some workshops, and I think that we'll be talking about the maintenance and preservation of older buildings as part of our work plan.
Thank you both. And moving on to the agenda, just to I'm going to give a brief overview of the Saving Places Conference that took place February 8th through 10th in Boulder. I have a little report that I think Lisa could make available if somebody wants some additional information, but I will just briefly go through it. The conference was held in Boulder this year, and the Colorado Preservation, Inc. is the sponsor of it, and they bring together some fantastic resources to discuss historic preservation throughout the state. They spoke a lot about, and I think one of the things that sometimes gets overlooked is we don't have to necessarily always look at structures. Our history has a lot to do with places, and it can be physical places, not just a structure that was built by, the European settlers. And Southern Ute Indian tribe made a very good presentation, talked a lot about the inclusion of those that preceded the people that settled in our valley, and it's important to include them in our discussions and include them in any of the decisions that we make that may pertain to their tribe and to the different peoples that lived on this land long before we did. The conference brings in some fantastic speakers from across the country, but I sat in on quite a few of them that talked about where they could get funding to help take care of some of these, because that's one of the hardest things that I think any historic preservation effort is, how do you pay for it, and is it cost effective? And I think what Jim discussed in our committee meeting earlier is that it was actually not as expensive as I thought it would be to save an old window versus tearing it out and putting in a new one. And most of the time we always think that the new one is more energy efficient and it doesn't take as much work. But in fact, there are a lot of things that are cheaper to repair than to replace. And that was one of the focuses of the conference. And I would say that that was one of the things that was emphasized throughout the entire conference, is that if we can help people understand that, and that it would make them much easier for them to take on a project that may need quite a bit of work. There are several state programs as well as federal tax incentives, and we are aware of several that are being used here in Canyon City and Fremont County, but I think that it's important that we make sure our elected officials know that the people have those resources, and we as our commission need to make that easily accessible to anybody who walks in the door and is interested in learning ways to find funding to save those old buildings. They had some good presentations, the one on the Laramie State Bank in Chicago, and I included some photographs of that. Fantastic structure, but it was completely falling apart on the interior. The neighborhood had changed over the century since the building was built. A lot of vacant buildings, parking lot on the adjacent lots, and so they have some big challenges to save that, but it was good to learn what other communities are doing, not just in Colorado, but across the nation. The final thing I took part in was a walking tour of the Boulder Main Street, Pearl Street, and got a good chance to take a look at some really cool old buildings. There are some that's very similar to what we have, what the TZACs did with the old Fremont Bank building on Main Street, and went in there and did a fantastic job of bringing it back. It had been clad in aluminum siding in the 70s when that was the hip thing to do, I guess, and so it was meant to bring in more business in that day and age. And then as downtown started to see all of the business move out to the businesses outside of the downtown area, a lot of those went into disrepair again for the second time. And so it's really been great to see these efforts in other communities put together and to save some of those old buildings and the history of those communities. The next presentation is going to be in La Junta, and so another small Arkansas River Valley town, and so they've been doing some things there that I think would be interesting, and if anybody on this commission or anybody in the community, I don't know if the community, if is it open to anybody in, I guess it is, because there were guys who repaired historic windows that took part in it, and a lot of companies that that do this kind of work participated in this conference. And I think, Mike, did you go to it last year, Mike?
I did go to it last year. I wasn't able to make it this year.
But I'm sure you found it is far more engaging when you go in person and you learn considerable amount of information that you might fall asleep through in a Zoom meeting. I noticed you were dozing off, but anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great thing they put together with tons of wonderful people doing wonderful things, and I would definitely recommend it for anyone, and even the tour down to La Junta.
So that's coming up in August, and if anybody is interested in it, I think we should look into that. And I'd mentioned the meeting prior to this one that maybe even looking down the road another year or two, having something like Canyon City host that, because as they mentioned when I was there, they said, well, you guys have a really great downtown, and we do. We have a really cool old downtown. So I think that bringing others from across the state in to take a look at it, and if we can figure out some way to host a conference like that in the future, I think we should certainly give that some consideration. If anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them, but I think we still have a little bit of time. But I would definitely say if there's possibility of you actually attending one of those in the future, it's definitely worth it. With that, I think, is that everything on the agenda? I believe it is. We do have, let's see, is there any public comments or any announcements by anyone?
We still have a subcommittee, or the committee update for.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Go ahead. Let's do that.
So Public Outreach Committee met prior to this meeting. We were discussing our upcoming public outreach opportunities. The next one being Senior Mini College, where they'll have a resource day on March 21st, where members of the committee will be manning a booth and talking to people at that event in regards to historic preservation. We're designing a brochure and a banner, and we'll have a number of resources available for people to pick up and learn more about the commission, as well as our future plans for historic preservation plan. I'm also doing a presentation at Senior Mini College regarding how people can learn or what resources are available on researching historic properties, and as well as how to go about designating a property either at the city level or the county level. And that will be on the same day on March 21st.
And if someone wants to take part in that, what do they need to do?
They need to register first through the PCC campus, the Senior Mini College. And I believe the course schedule is being published this week in the newspaper.
There was something,
Yeah.
I didn't see it, there was something.
It's coming up, so
Do
how
you
to
have
register.
to have an AARP card to attend, or?
As a presenter, I can.
So it is for seniors, though, or is it open to the public?
Yes, I believe it is open to the public.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments, or you have some additional information?
Oh, we are planning on doing another community coffee too. Another idea that came up was neighborhood markets. So in March, we'll try to schedule that and get that on our schedule at the museum. For announcements, upcoming webinar is tomorrow. Thank you, Jim, for sending that out to me. Through the Division of Local Government, they're doing a webinar on Main Street and Main Street approaches and programs at, I don't see the time,
9 a.m.
9 a.m. And then, sort of in correlation with this commission, the Planning Commission is going to be discussing the Clock Tower Plaza project tonight at 6 p.m. And then they're also scheduling a public design charrette for the project. Is it March 1st? I don't know yet.
Yeah, I think so.
Still working on the time.
Let me see if I can find it.
If there is a set, that should be published or coming out pretty soon, I'll let you know. And the commission is more than welcome to attend those meetings and offer comments. And then the last thing is, this year we're up for an evaluation for our CLG. I have not heard back from Lindsay regarding when that will take place, but she might come down in person to evaluate our commission.
So they'll just observe a meeting, or what do they
Yeah,
do exactly?
Yeah, probably just observe a meeting.
Okay.
And that's all the announcements I have.
Okay. Anyone in the audience or in the public that would have anything that we're missing or like to add?
Is that planning commission meeting going to be posted online?
Yes, I think it is. I think there's a link on the city website.
All of them are Facebook videos, yeah, or Facebook Live. There's Christie.
Hi. Yes, they're all posted on the the website. That will be video on there on the Facebook page. And then for the charrette, the first one on March 1st will be a more for the stakeholders, and then the big public one will be later. So I'm sure Patrick tonight during the meeting will talk about the schedule and when those dates will be set. I have set up a web page for the Clock Tower Plaza design, so that's up and running as of today. And so people will be able to find that information on how to take a survey and what's going on with the clock tower and any kind of dates. Once we have those set, they'll be added there.
And where do we find that?
On canyonscity.org, if you go under search Clock Tower Plaza, or canyonscity.org/Clock Tower Plaza.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Any
Great,
questions?
thank you.
Good. Okay.
Anything else? I'll speak up or forever hold your peace. The last time I stopped, we had 3 things on the agenda still. So if there's nothing else, then we will adjourn this meeting. Our next meeting is March 22nd.